Vor ungefähr knapp 20 Jahren habe ich Thompson kennengelernt. Und da habe ich gerade angefangen gehabt, so ein paar Jahre vorher, mich um mein spirituelles Leben zu kümmern. Und mochte sofort. Das war gleich am Anfang so eine Brudergefühl. So, den kenne ich, den mag ich, den behalte ich so ungefähr. Und dann war es mir, wie ich ihn näher kennengelernt habe, habe ich über ihn mehr erfahren und natürlich auch erfahren, was er tut. Und er ist nicht nur Filmmacher, sondern er ist eben auch ein Channel-Medium. Und zwar einer, der auch das tut und das selber macht, was er hört und was er quasi gelehrt bekommt. Von Anfang an war mir immer wichtig, ihn eigentlich auch in meine Bücher einfließen zu lassen und die Weisheit, die Solano hat, eben auch mitzuteilen. Und deshalb, als LD sein Buch auf Englisch geschrieben hatte, The Message, war es mir ganz wichtig, dass es auch auf Deutsch kommt. Und das ist jetzt passiert. You have been in Germany a couple of times before because you're my friend and you've been invited to my house.
Thank God, yes.
How's your German going by now?
Ich bin lernen.
Sehr gut. We understood that.
Gut.
LD, we know each other for 25 years by now.
Yes.
And you have a kind of unique profession. You are a filmmaker, which is a unique profession in itself. You are an activist, civil rights activist, human rights activist, and you are channeling an entity called Solano. Why don't you explain to us what Solano is?
One night I went to a grocery store just to pick up some supplies. And there in the grocery store, I noticed that there was this East Indian man who was everywhere that I was. And I noticed him looking at me. And as this came to my awareness that this person was everywhere that I was, I started to get a little uneasy. I started to get kind of nervous. And by the time I got to the checkout line and realized that he was right behind me, I got really nervous. And so I finished up the checkout and practically ran to my car. And as I got to my car, I went around to the other side, the driver's side, and put the key in the door. Yes, it was back when keys were still used. And it felt like there was something that brushed my forehead, and it caused me to look up. And I looked up, and there he was standing on the other side of my car, which again, my uneasiness, my nervousness escalated by many degrees. And he said simply, "May I talk to you?" And I was, kind of cocky. I'd just moved to Los Angeles from New York. And so I said, "Sure, what do you want to say?" "Sure." And he said, "You have summoned me, and I've come to tell you of your life." Well, that was not what I was expecting at all. And it touched me. It touched me deeply, actually. And so he began with that and told me things about my life that really no one could know. Even my dearest friends didn't know. And so he had my complete and utter attention, as you can imagine. And so from there, he asked if we could sit down in the car. We sat down. We spent 3 hours in the car with him telling me, basically teaching me the science of thought, the science of how an individual creates their life. And I had no preparation for this. I hadn't read any metaphysical books. There were very few metaphysical books that were out at the time. And I didn't have any friends who knew the first thing about spirituality or metaphysics. So at one point in the conversation, I was overwhelmed with what he was telling me, because he was saying, "You're responsible for your life. You're responsible for exactly how your life is." And I was on unemployment at the time, making $79 a week, and barely being able to afford an apartment and barely being able to afford groceries. So it was it was very overwhelming, the information that he was giving me. And I said, I just don't understand. And he said, be at peace with me a moment. And he reached over, and of course that voice in my head that had been nervous to begin with started freaking out because he touched me. He touched my body. And what I learned later was that he was touching each chakra. And when he got to my head, he held my head in his hands for the longest time. And when he did that, it was like explosions of light went off in my head. And when I finally opened my eyes again and looked out at this grocery store parking lot, I saw everything differently. There was a woman that was coming to her car with her 2 kids. One of the kids was in the grocery cart, and she was putting her groceries into the trunk. And it was like I could see the thoughts around her and the beliefs that she held that made her life what it was. And so you can imagine my excitement at 25, having had no clue and really stumbling along, trying to build a good life for myself, to have someone say, this is how your life comes to be. This is how everyone's life comes to be. I was ecstatic. And so after that event, well, let me first say that he then said to me in closing, he said, you can call on me anytime, and I will be there. He didn't ask me for any money. He didn't ask me to join a religion. He didn't want anything from me. He just got out of the car, and as he walked away, I was watching him walk away, he vanished. Simply vanished. So I was very excited to tell all of my friends. And the first friend that I told this story to, they looked kind of blank and bewildered and changed the subject.
Did they ask you to go to a hospital as soon as possible?
Well, I think that was in their mind, actually. There was no one around me who said, wow, that's really exciting, and here's what I think happened, and this is a really important event in your life. It was more a matter of people just, shaking their head and saying, oh, okay, great.
What did you take?
Right, exactly. So nevertheless, that said, it was clear to me that my life had changed and my path was different as a result of that. I had a sense of responsibility that I had never felt in my life. Responsibility about my thoughts, responsibility about my actions. And so I'd have to say really that was the defining moment in my life where my life went from just simply being focused on a goal of monetary success and some sense of self-worth to really being about I have a work in the world, and my work in the world is a spiritual work.
And several years later,
many years
fast forward
later,
you have written a book which is one in English, and I love to present it also in German. Was die Seele sieht, and we have them here. And you share the most important teachings of Solano in this book.
Yes.
When you look at it, and I know there are many teachings, as Solano has been my teacher for over 20 years, and I've experienced, the value of his teaching and the wisdom of his teaching. But is there a way that you can say, this is the most, or this is the basic of all his teachings, or this is the most important thing, or if you just know one thing, this is the thing you should know?
I would have to say that the single most important teaching that Solano offers is that each and every one of us is immortal and each and every one of us is an immortal soul that is divinely intelligent. And that infinite intelligence isn't really just careening wildly through life or lives, but is actually guided by one single unifying principle, which is the passion for wisdom. Not knowledge, as in book learning, but wisdom. And ultimately, through gaining that wisdom, reuniting with the infinite intelligence, or God, or the divine source, or whatever in each individual's organization of thought is their sense of the more, the cosmos.
Now Solano is teaching us and speaking to us to establish an observer in our head, which, you know, you and I have heard many years before, and we have been, I think, quite successful in this, which meaning that you remove yourself from your own thought process in life and just look at your life as if you would watch it. Now, what do you think was the reason for Solano to establish that? What does he want to accomplish with that?
As I understand it, and what is still a growing understanding in my own life, is that we often, as human beings, get caught up in what he calls the altered ego, or the limited mind. And the limited mind often it's the mind that speaks to us of our fears, of our insecurities, of our guilts, our shames. It's really the mind that is the acculturated mind, the conditioned mind.
Wanting to fit in, don't be weird or special, or anything like that. Yeah.
Exactly. As opposed to divine mind or soul, which the values of the soul are the values of compassion and love and generosity and fearlessness and the understanding that we are immortal. So that division, sometimes it winds up creating a battle inside of an individual. They want to be a better person. They want their life to be graceful and peaceful, and they want to be generous, and they want to be kind and love unconditionally. But the fear mind, the limited mind, keeps them from doing that. Mm-hmm. So the observer, the ability to literally observe your emotional state and to observe the thoughts that are creating the emotional state, that is the first step to actually being able to inhabit the soul's perspective. Mm. I notice that there are thoughts that still to this day I careen off onto that are noticeable. And I think that if anyone takes this to heart, anyone who's listening to this takes this to heart, and they establish an observer and they start to watch their thoughts, they'll see that there's something that comes up in their life over and over and over and over again. What's beautiful about that is that Solano teaches us that those things that are habitual, they're actually signposts for what our soul wants to learn from any given lifetime. You have to do the work. It's lovely to read about it, and it's lovely to listen to you, but you have to do it, because otherwise it just doesn't come by osmosis, unfortunately. No, that realization for me was one of the most important realizations in my life, of understanding that you get something, and it's wonderful, and you're excited, and you're thrilled, and you think, yes, I did it, I got it. And then the next day you wake up, and there it is again. And it's like, wait a minute, I dealt with this, I handled this. And what Solano has said is that every time that you touch it again, every time that you go through it again, it's another spiral up on that ladder of wisdom.
And what I notice is that the times are larger. You know, before this might have come up every day, then it comes up every week, then it comes up every month, then it comes up every year. So I think the distance is also what we should be happy about, because that shows us, oh, thank God it's not at least every day. Now you have been with Solano now for 30-some years. Mm-hmm. And just now really opening it up to a broader audience. Why is that?
Yes. Well, I didn't want to be overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. People that meet Solano, people that experience when I go into that state where this really beautiful energy comes through, they are so taken with that they really, that becomes oftentimes, not always, oftentimes that becomes their focus. And I couldn't help but notice that. Mm. And I felt as though, hey, wait a minute, I'm the one that's here keeping this body healthy and getting the haircuts and shaving the face and doing the stuff and dealing with the issues. What about me? And so there's that, and there's also just not wanting to get lost. I have witnessed several teachers who have really started believing their own press, so to speak, believing that they are special. I know I'm not special.
Well, you know, as you know, and I've seen that too with other people, that there's so many people are drawn to it, and then you get your whole adoring crowd. And then when you get a whole adoring crowd, this is very difficult to say, no, there's nothing to adore, and to keep that in balance.
Well, it's pointless to say it.
Yeah.
It's pointless to say,
you have to remove yourself.
Well, yes, if you say to somebody, no, don't do that, they're responsible for their feelings.
That's true.
So it becomes the individual's responsibility, the individual who is the wonderful musician, or the wonderful actor, or the wonderful author, or the wonderful teacher. It becomes their responsibility to keep their addictive personality in check, if in fact they're addictive.
Yes.
And not need that external gratification in order to feel whole and full. So I've really, in all of these years, what I've been doing is I've been checking my work. And I'm at a point now where I realize that it is always, there will always be something that will humble me. There will always be something that's going to bring me right back down, feet on the ground, understanding that I'm still a human being working it out and learning my lessons, even if I do this work.
But you are one of the people, and I, as you know, we're both trying to do the same, to share that just because we write about it doesn't mean we are perfect in it. It just means this is what we are practicing as well. And I think that's the beauty of your work, is that you always share your own practice in it. And so I collectively thank you for your openness and your availability to share.
Well, that's how you do it. So of course you would appreciate it.
Thank you.
Not everyone does. Some people are like, no, don't tell me that.
Well, you know, some people would rather have somebody on a pedestal. That's the next thing they're doing is walking over water. And if they're not walking over water, then they're going to be upset.
Right.
So, but, you know, of course, this is not what Solano wants, and this is certainly not what you want.
No.
And
no water walking.
No.
Swimming. I like to swim.
There's a reason for that.
Yes.
So thank you so much. And I hope you had a little insight in LD's personality and his heart.